Welcome to Secrets of the Stars, where we explore the ancient knowledge of astrology, decode your unique blueprint, and unveil how the wisdom of the sky contributes to your life. I'm your host, Abby Lutus, astrologer, mentor, and sky guide. It's time to embark on a cosmic adventure of self-discovery and understanding why you are the way you are. Let's dive in. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Secrets of the Stars. And I'm so excited to bring you this episode today because I think it's going to be really well received. I'm going to be talking about what if you don't know your birth time? And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks and some workarounds to help you still be able to use astrology if you don't have an accurate birth time. So before we jump in, I thought I'd give you an update on what I've been up to. I've been working a lot in my tour guiding role over on Rottnest Island. And so I have been spending a lot of time out there. It's very hot and it is nice over on the island. There is a beautiful breeze, but I just love it over there. I'm so excited that I get to work over there on an ongoing basis. The other thing that I have been is deep in my health and fitness journey. So I have been heading to the gym quite a lot. I have been running. I've been doing my HIIT workouts. I've been meal prepping. I've been doing the works. I've also returned to one of my favorite classes. I returned to adult gymnastics last year, and it is just so much fun. I absolutely love going there every Friday. It is one of the best parts of my week. Now, I've been working on an astrology mentorship coaching offer, which I'm going to be releasing or launching in a couple of weeks, maybe months' time when it's all finalized. And if you're local here in Perth, which is where I'm recording this podcast, I've also been working on a live in-person astrology immersion. So I'm super excited to launch that in the next couple of days. You'll hear more about the live in-person astrology immersion that I'm doing. And especially if you're here in Perth, definitely come and check it out. It's going to be an incredible, incredible 6 weeks, and I think you're going to love it. Now, I am recording this podcast as we lead up to a pretty bold and brilliant new moon, or full moon, I should say, in Leo. And so this is impacting me quite a lot. It's going to be happening over a significant placement in my chart. So let's see how everything plays out. But let's jump into the episode. And what I'm going to be talking about is how we can use astrology even if we don't know our exact birth time, and potentially ways that we can go about finding it. Now, the birth time is so important in astrology because it will give us the ascendant point or the rising sign point. And this is important because it really sets up the chart to see where in certain areas of your life things are going to play out. Are they going to play out in your career, your relationships, in your home and family life? And so knowing this is really, really key. The other reason you want to know your exact time is that the moon changes signs pretty frequently. And if you were born on a day that the moon changed signs and you don't know the time, it's going to impact your moon sign as well. So that's really important, a really important reason to know. So I'm going to be talking about some common reasons why people might not know their birth time. Quite simply, maybe the time wasn't recorded. Whether it wasn't recorded in the hospital or if you had a home birth and it wasn't recorded, medical records might have not been kept. Maybe the records have been lost, or it just wasn't a significant piece of information that was needed to be kept. Now, the birth time may have been forgotten or simply not even recorded at all. So that is something, I hear a lot. Often people say, I was told that it was between this time and this time, or it was in the morning sometime. So there definitely are workarounds for that. Now, maybe your family you've been separated from your family, or Potentially you were adopted, so you might not have access to that information. Maybe your parents are no longer around, so you can't quite simply just can't ask the question. So, here are some ways that you can find it. And I fully encourage you to try some of these. And some of them might sound really basic, but you never know what sort of information you could get that would step you closer to knowing your birth time. So, the first thing is to see if you can find any records. You might want to check with the hospital to see if there was any records kept. Some keep these records and some don't. So that could be your first point of call. Even before then, I would be checking to see if you had a baby book. Was anything written down? Was there any information? Was there any clues? Was your birth time recorded on your birth certificate? Another kind of pretty obvious thing to suggest. Now, some birth certificates keep this information and other birth certificates, they might not be recorded. So don't be surprised if your birth time is not on your birth certificate. Now, one thing that might seem quite obvious is to ask family members. You can ask your parents, obviously, but even if your parents are not around or you can't ask them for whatever reason, you could ask your older siblings. Maybe they have an idea of what time they might have gone off to be cared for, or they might remember some pieces of information. You might ask aunts or uncles if they're still around, or friends of the family might be able to give you these clues to at least know if you were born in the morning or the afternoon, or even just a time frame, because all of this information helps. And thirdly, you can use chart rectification, which really looks at your life events and will map and track. And it's quite a detailed process to get it exactly right. It's usually something that you would pay an astrologer to do. So that is something that you can also look into. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, I've also heard of websites where you can put in key pieces of information that might be able to give you some form of accuracy. It's all based around life events. So if you have if you're older, then you might have more life events to input data into these types of calculators, and it might make it a lot easier when doing chart rectification. The one thing I want to let you know is that you can still use astrology even if you don't have a birth time. You can still work with it in many ways, and that's what I am going to show you how to do right now. So I'm going to talk about ways that you can use astrology and potentially find your birth time. And the first thing is that you can use a solar chart. So a solar chart is simply by putting your sun at 0 degrees, or putting your sun where the ascendant would be. And I'll give you an example here. I'll share my screen and show you exactly what I mean here. So you'll see here that my sun placement is here at 13 degrees Leo. Now, if I was using a solar chart, I want to put that at 0 degrees Leo, or because I know my birth time, and this might be interesting for other people to look at. It's always good to look at your solar chart because there's also clues and information in your solar chart. So here's something I prepared earlier, and you can look at your solar chart here. So you can see I've actually put my sun at 13 degrees. But if I didn't know that I was born at 13 degrees Leo, I would put that solar point, that solar chart would have to go at 0 degrees Leo. So whatever your sun sign is, you want to move that degree to be 0 degrees. And this gives you a solar chart. This is going to give you a pretty good information because the rising sign and the sun sign are very similar in ways. They both show you about who you are. Now, the rising sign gives you more information about how you show up and the gifts that you rise with, but I definitely think this is pretty incredible, and I really resonate with some of the placements and points of my solar chart. The other thing that you can look at is a noon chart. So this will also give you some really good information. I'll show you a noon chart here. And you can see I've put my, you'll see over here, I've put the time at 12 noon. All right. This gives me a Scorpio rising. And I can relate to that as well because my Scorpio placements are very strong in my chart. And my sun in the 10th house, that definitely resonates with me as well. So there's a few ways that you can play around with the chart and really see some different aspects and some different angles. And maybe even if you know your birth time, you'll be able to find out some other important pieces of information. Now, if you don't know your birth time, the things that you can still learn are planetary placements. So you can learn that Mars is in Scorpio in my example here, or you can learn that Jupiter is in Scorpio, or you can learn that Venus is in Cancer. These are certain planet placements. You just won't know the houses. You will also learn about the aspects. So, in my case, the moon is making an opposition to Mercury. That's something that you will be able to learn. Moon aspects may be quite varied. So, that is one just to note because the moon does move so quickly. But you can also see here Venus is making a square to Saturn. Now, that doesn't change, it changes slightly, but not enough. You'll also be able to see if planets are in retrograde, provided they didn't go retrograde or station direct on that day. And you can also really work with transits in this mode of looking at your chart. So there's a good place to start if you haven't don't know your birth time. You can use that solar chart or you can use that noon chart. Just remember that you're not really going to have a rising sign. You won't be able to say that your rising sign is Leo, and you're not really going to know the house placements. In fact, you're not going to know the house placements because you don't have that accurate time. Now, the second thing that you can do is you can use intuitive methods because I truly believe that the body knows, all right? It was our birth after all. So that information is definitely, I believe, contained in our cells. It was our birth, so we must have that information somewhere. So that's why I think intuitive methods are incredibly important and can really help pinpoint the approximate time. I say pinpoint the approximate time. They can, help you find an approximate time. And so there are a couple of ways. You can use a pendulum, you can use muscle testing, you can use intuition-based testing. So these are simple things that you can try at home. You'd want to get really grounded to get started. And I've just got a pendulum here to show you. With your pendulum, you do want to tune it. You don't have to use a pendulum exactly. You could also use a necklace or something that hangs and has a weight at the bottom. So what you want to do is you just want to have it hanging over your pointer finger here, and you want to tune your pendulum by asking it to show you a yes. Once it's shown you a yes, it's going to spin in a certain direction. Mine's already spinning. It always spins in a clockwise direction for a yes. And if I ask it to show me a no, it's already doing it because this pendulum is highly tuned. It goes back and forth. If I ask it to show me a maybe, it's going to go in the anti-clockwise direction. And you can see how quickly that happens here because I use this pendulum quite a bit. So that's a good way to use your body, your muscles, your system to really understand. And you can ask it questions like, was I born before noon? You need to ask it those yes or no questions. Then the other thing that you could do is the muscle testing. And quite simply, the easiest one that I like to say is where you grip you link your thumb and your forefinger together and you resist trying to pull them apart. And then you can, again, do the same thing. Show me a yes, show me a yes. And normally my fingers always stay linked. And if I say, show me a no, mine will break apart. Now, this is something that you need to try for yourself to see if it actually works for you. So, there's some simple things that you can do at home to really tap into the muscle based testing, the intuition, kinesiology methods to really ask when you were born. All right. Now, the third thing, as I mentioned earlier, is you can look at chart rectification. Now, what is chart rectification? Essentially, what you do with chart rectification is you want to start looking at major events in your life. If you don't really know much about astrology, this is going to be quite complex. You're not going to be able to do it on your own, but you want to look at major shifts. Maybe there was a time that you moved house or bought a house or had a massive change in career. You might have had a massive change in relationship. And once you know these, you can pinpoint them to certain planets, and then you can put those planets in the houses that might have related to certain things. So, for example, if you pinpointed that you had a major relationship change, you might want to pinpoint that relationship topic to Venus. And then if it was a significant one-to-one relationship, then you would pop Venus in the seventh house and you would see where the rest of the chart falls. Now, that's a very basic example. You could also look at major transits like your Saturn return. What happened when you were around 28, 29, 30? Because normally there is a major life event, a major shift. And what was it? And where does it relate to your chart? Was that Saturn return about relationships? Was it about family? Did you buy a new house? Did you up and change career? Did you go traveling? What was that major event about in your life? And then you can work the chart back from there. But as I said, it's quite complex. And I think I will do another episode on chart rectification because there are specific steps that you can follow to really understand how to follow this method and use it in your life. So, a common thing is that people might misidentify themselves because the rising sign, which ultimately is what we get from the birth time, it's how you show up, all right? And even if you have a really good understanding of yourself, understanding how you show up in the world is really about how other people see you. It's not about how you see yourself. This is the sun energy. You usually see yourself in the sun or sometimes even in the moon. I definitely relate to both of those energies. Now, after learning my rising sign, I definitely see that. But when I was first told my birth time, I actually was told a different time. My mum always said I was born at 20 past 1, and that gave me a Sagittarius rising. And I can definitely identify with that. But I also have a lot of planets in Sagittarius. So that's where that energy was showing up. So if it's something that you want to look into, if you've exhausted all other options and you still don't know, or you really want to get that exact birth time, you want to work with a professional astrologer. So the other thing that you can do if you just want to play around and you're just curious is you can estimate your rising sign. Now, I just mentioned that sometimes we really don't know how we show up in the world, but there's no harm in having a look and seeing what you can figure out. So what we're really looking for here is this ascendant point, and it can give us many clues. So the ascendant point is the energy in which you rise. As I said before, it's how you show up in the world. It's your first impressions. It's how other people see you. So you might want to collect some information, maybe off your friends, although normally your friends will see you as the sun sign. I normally say it's the first instance that someone meets you is what they will see in you. So this is what the rising sign will show you. You can also look at physical features and behaviors, because in medical astrology or body astrology, physical looks and appearances do pertain to the rising sign. So that is something that would be interesting to look at as well. So then you can experiment with your chart and try different rising signs and sort of see what what fits. Now, if you don't know what the signs are about, you can have a look. I've actually got a guide that you can download. So you can go and get this guide, or you can do some research on the zodiac sign. So this is my basics astrology guide, and this would really help if you're not, you might be fully aware of your sun sign, but you might not know exactly what all the other signs mean. So I've just got this quick guide where I talk about what all the planets mean, and I talk about the different signs here and how some of the qualities that they have. I don't show all of them. But if you want to download that, you can. I'll leave the links in the show notes, and then you can go and study up on the different zodiac signs and just have a play around, experiment, see which fits. So there you have it. I mean, even if you don't have a birth time, astrology can still be really useful if you put into practice some of these methods. So have a play around with the intuitive method or the experiments. Seeing, you might want to ask some friends, maybe you can dig out some information about your birth time. Don't underestimate asking an older sibling. They may just have key information or might be able to remember certain things about the day that you were born. And this can be so, so helpful. So if you have enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to go. You can go and watch it on YouTube. If you're not already watching here, subscribe. You can follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're even somewhat interested, you can go and download my astrology basics guide. It's a free guide that you can just find the links in my show notes. And if you're curious to dive deeper into a personal reading, I offer many. I do natal chart readings. I do forecast readings to understand your transits. And right now I have some readings and reports based around 2025. So if you're really keen to understand what this year is going to bring you, go and grab one of those reports and readings. I can't wait to share with you what this massive year of 2025 is all about. So without further ado, let's close this episode off. There you have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've really hoped that you found this episode insightful and that you've learned something new. And as I said, if you're interested in booking a reading, head to my website, avilutis.com. And until next time, keep shining bright. Thank you for joining me on this cosmic journey of self-discovery. If you have enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share it with someone who you think would love it. Keep exploring the secrets of the stars. And remember, the universe has woven a unique story just for you. Until next time, keep shining bright.